Hello everyone, my name is Dhruv and this is my first learning demonstration for the completion of my class requirements for Environmental Science 10H. In this presentation, I will be talking about pollinators and how they're important for our environment. Pollinators are animals that help plants reproduce by transferring pollen from one flower to another. Most people think of bees first, but butterflies, birds, bats, beetles, and even some lizards do this crucial job. Every time a pollinator visits a flower to feed, it moves pollen around, allowing the plant to grow fruits, vegetables, seeds, and more. This process is essential not just for wild plants, but for over a third of our food crops. Without pollinators, both biodiversity and our food systems would be in serious danger. Pollinators matter because they're essential to life on Earth. About 75% of all flowering plants and over one third of the food that we eat depends on animals like bees, butterflies, and birds to carry pollen from flower to flower. Without them, entire ecosystems would collapse and our diets would look drastically different. This presentation explores the incredible role pollinators play and the growing threats they are currently facing. So, how does pollination actually work? Well, it is a process that allows plants to reproduce. When a pollinator, like a bee, visits a flower to collect the nectar, as shown in the diagram, it also picks up pollen from the flower's anthers. As the bee moves on to another flower, some of the pollen rubs off onto the stigma, which is the flower's female part. This simple transfer triggers fertilization, which eventually produces seeds, fruits, or even vegetables. It's a very small action which has very massive consequences, especially for plants, animals, and most importantly, humans. Pollinators are the invisible workers behind much of our food. About 35% of our global crop production depends on animal pollination. Foods like almonds, apples, avocados, berries, and even coffee wouldn't exist without their help. Some crops, like almonds, rely almost entirely on honeybee pollination. So, every time you're eating a salad or sipping a fruit juice or probably enjoying chocolate, you're benefiting from the hard work of these pollinators. They don't just support agriculture, but they are the reason why ecosystems are held together. Around 90% of wild flowering plants rely on pollinators to reproduce. These plants provide food and shelter for birds, insects, and many other species. So, when pollinators disappear, plant life declines, and so do the animals that depend heavily on it. What that means is that pollinators are not only key to biodiversity, but also to the resilience and the structure of entire ecosystems. Despite their importance, pollinators are in trouble. Over the past 50 years, many species have seen sharp population declines. Honeybee colonies are collapsing. Monarch butterflies have dropped by more than 80% in some regions. The causes are very complex but simply clear: habitat destruction, widespread pesticide use, invasive pests, and climate change all play a very huge role. This decline threatens not only biodiversity but also global food security. As you can see in this graph below, that how their population is on a very steep and a very impactful decline. Climate, climate chaos. Now, climate change is one of the major factors that is disrupting the delicate timing between pollinators and plants. Warmer temperatures and unpredictable seasons cause flowers to bloom earlier or later than usual, sometimes missing their pollinators entirely. As habitats shift or disappear, many species struggle to adapt. Extreme heat can also directly harm bees and butterflies by reducing their activity and food sources. In this way, climate change becomes an invisible threat to pollination and, more importantly, food security. Modern pesticides, especially neonicotinoids, are one of the most harmful threats to pollinators. Even small sublethal doses can confuse bees, disrupt their ability to find flowers, or even return to the hive, and this ultimately weakens their immune systems as well. Pesticides often linger in the nectar and pollen of plants, turning their food into a toxic trap. As we increase chemical use in agriculture, we risk silencing the very workers our food depends upon. So, why is it everyone's problem? Well, the decline of pollinators affects all of us. Without them, our plates would look very different, missing many fruits, vegetables, and especially nuts. Farmers would see lower yields, and food prices will definitely rise. So, in the long term, this could lead to shortages and worsen hunger in vulnerable regions. Pollinators are not just part of nature, they are part of our survival system. On that note, one inspiring effort that I would like to share is the Pollinator Pathway Program. It links gardens, parks, schools, and even front yards to form continuous habitats for bees, butterflies, and other pollinators. These pathways use native plants, avoid pesticides, and give pollinators safe places to feed and rest. What began as a small initiative in Connecticut has spread to hundreds of towns across the US, showing how local actions can make a national difference. It proves we all have a role to play, even by just planting the right flowers in our own backyards. So, be a part of the solution. Helping pollinators doesn't just require a very big budget or a very big yard, just small, thoughtful choices. You can plant native flowers that bloom throughout the seasons, skip harmful pesticides, and support farmers who grow food with pollinators in mind. Even something as simple as leaving a small part of your yard a little wild can make a difference. And just as important, talk about it. Spread awareness about it. Because the more people who understand the problem, the more we can protect these essential species together. At the very end, in conclusion, I would just like to say, let's protect the pollinators who protect our planet. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.